Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching this. So I actually had a script planned for today, but then something happened recently in UK news, and I thought, well, I have to speak about that now. In Bushey in Hertfordshire on Tuesday the 9th of July 2024, a triple unaliving happened. I'm currently recording this video on Friday the 12th of July, so I am literally going to tell you exactly what I know up until this point. So because the suspect is still in hospital, they can't actually say that beyond a reasonable doubt he is the actual person who did this to the family. But we know that Kyle Clifford is the person who unalived 3 people. These 3 people were 3 women. Their names were Carol Hunt, Louise Hunt, and Hannah Hunt. Their father in the UK is quite a celebrity. I would say that he's a faceless celebrity because his voice is very well known. He has done commentary for the racing of BBC 5 Live for the last 20 years.
Road to the front, a huge shock, but they love it here in Saudi Arabia. Emblem Road has toppled a lot of them.
So I think even if you don't necessarily know what he looks like, in the UK you definitely would have heard his voice before. It's just super well known throughout the nation. John Hunt is also a former police officer. He is currently 58 years old and he was married to Carol and had 3 children, 2 of those including Louise and Hannah. So normally I like to do a strict timeline, but because the police haven't been able to speak to Kyle yet and because no real information about what happened that day has come out, unfortunately I'm just going to tell you exactly what I could research and find. So the suspect in this case is Kyle Clifford, and Kyle is 26 years old. He is from Enfield in London. He used to work as a private security guard, and in 2002 he left the army after a short service. A woman who grew up with him in Enfield said that he always seemed pretty normal and he was a nice guy. That seems to be such a common thing that people say, that they didn't expect him to do this, or he was lovely, or every time they saw him they felt comfortable. But it's like that old saying, wolf in sheep's clothing. You just don't know. Hannah ran her own beauty business. She specialised in anti-aging and she was just 28 years old. And those that worked with her say that she was an incredible person and every client loved her. Louise ran a dog grooming business from home and she was just 25 years old. Kyle was in a relationship with Louise for about a year, and we don't know too much more about the relationship and why things went wrong and why they broke up, but all we do know is that the relationship ended really badly. There's a word that's constantly found on the internet and it's messy. And we know this because Louise had actually made tweets about the breakup. Her very last tweet was a repost about escaping a bad relationship, and I will add that now. Louise and Kyle actually broke up just about a week before the murder. And poor Louise actually got into a car accident when she was thinking about the breakup. One of the neighbours, called Glyn, she's 77 years old, actually told a reporter that Louise was visibly shaken by the breakup. Louise was a very nice girl. She ran a dog grooming business from the house. I heard that she split from a boyfriend last week and was very upset about it. So much so that when she was driving home at some point last week and drove into a wooden telegraph pole not far from the house. So Tuesday, the day of the murder, is exactly what investigators are trying to work out. What actually happened, when, and how. What we currently know is that Kyle got into the house. We don't know if it was forced or he was let in. We know that then Carol, Hannah, and Louise were tied up. We know that they were definitely tied up around their wrists, as later on they would find lesions around their wrists. Just before this happened though, there was a frantic text that was sent to the police from one of the victims. Kyle then used a crossbow from only 3 feet away from each victim and fatally shot them one by one. Kyle then makes his escape out of the house, down an alleyway that's quite close to the house, and out the back into another road. When he reaches this road, he's walking quite quickly. I wouldn't say that he's showing any signs of remorse or fear though. He's just walking very quickly whilst holding the crossbow concealed with a white blanket or sheet to a car that gets unlocked as he gets near to it and proceeds to put the crossbow in the back. At around 7 p.m. that evening, John Hunt then returns home. He was working that day and came home expecting it to be an evening like any other. But for him, he literally walked into a nightmare. At the time that John arrived home, Carol, Louise and Hannah were still alive. They had managed to get out of the rope that was around their wrists, and John immediately called for help. He called the police and he called an ambulance. And although the paramedics tried their hardest, not one victim could be saved. Each shot that Kyle made was fatal. It's just really sickening, and I don't think you can ever begin to understand what John went through. I don't even think sickening is a good enough word. John literally walked into hell. The worst possible thing that could happen happened. We unfortunately do not know the motive right now, and I'll explain that in a minute. But 9 times out of 10, a motive is not justified for committing murder. And in this case, the best assumption that the investigators have is that Kyle acted because he was upset that Louise broke up with him. It is truly uncomprehendable that this happened and simply why it happened. It is honestly one of the most horrific cases I've ever heard of. The police have not yet disclosed what was exactly said in that text message. And I do feel that within the next week, a lot more about this case will come out. So the more that comes out, I will compile into another video and then add to this one. We know that Clifford put the crossbow into the back of the car and then got into said car and drove off. We don't know if he was alone or he drove himself somewhere else. And we unfortunately do not know yet where he went between this time and the time in which he was found. Once the police were sure that Kyle Clifford was the person they were looking for, they asked the public for help. They asked for any information about his whereabouts, and they also asked for any Ring doorbell footage. And this is the reason why we know exactly what he did after the murder. And we know that indeed it was him. The number of phone calls was staggering. He had been seen in multiple locations, and it had really helped the police locate exactly where he was now. They searched all over Enfield, and eventually a heat-seeking helicopter located a man in the back of a cemetery. This cemetery was called Lavender Hill Cemetery, and he was found nearly exactly 24 hours after the murder. Kyle had attempted to take his own life with the same crossbow that he used to unalive Carol, Louise and Hannah. It is said that Kyle is currently in a serious condition in Royal London Hospital in Whitechapel. Police have said quite a few times that he literally cannot make a statement right now. What is also interesting though is that Kyle's brother is a convicted murderer. Kyle's older brother Bradley is actually serving a life sentence for killing a teenager in 2017. Bradley Clifford mowed down 19-year-old Joshua Francis, who was riding a moped, and his passenger, Sobhan Khan. Sobhan was only 18 years old when this murder took place. It was said that Bradley's prized red Mustang had been damaged. Francis and Khan threw a bottle at Bradley Clifford's Mustang. This then sent Bradley Clifford into a blind rage. He drunkenly chased their scooter at nearly double the speed on the wrong side of the road. Mr. Khan was flung into the air, and Bradley Clifford continued the attack as he laid on the street, punching him hard 9 times. He was handed a life sentence with a minimum term of 23 years for murder and 7 years for the attack on Mr. Francis to run concurrently. From the family home in Bushey, 2 computer hard drives and a document bag were taken for investigation. Mr. John Hunt, his daughter, or any family members have yet to make a comment. It has been noted though that they are currently being looked after by specially trained police. I genuinely cannot imagine how anyone in the family feel. I sincerely don't know how John feels to literally come home and walk into what I've previously called hell. There is no other word sufficient enough for what he has seen. I'm sure once they are able to take a statement from Kyle, then the family, once they are ready, will make a statement. That might not be though until Kyle is sentenced. And again, I don't think anyone actually expects anything to come from the Hunt family. They do not need to do a thing but look after themselves and get all the support they can possibly get. Alex Klein, who was in a serious relationship with Hannah, has made a post on Instagram. It says, "Rest in peace, the love of my life. I will never forget you. Stolen from me too soon." 2 vigils have happened in local churches for the victims. Detective Superintendent Rob Hall from the Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire and Hertfordshire Major Crime Unit said, "Our thoughts remain with the victim's family and loved ones at this devastating and indescribable time. This was an unprecedented attack and we are determined to understand the full circumstances of what happened that evening and the events leading up to it. We are wholly committed to seeking justice for the victims and their family. This investigation, as I'm sure people can imagine, will take time. I'd like to reiterate my sincere thanks to the members of the public who contacted us yesterday and helped with our inquiries." Home Secretary Yvette Cooper is seriously considering whether there needs to be tougher crossbow laws. She said she will look at the findings of a Home Office review carried out earlier this year. Can I just make a comment though, that you don't need to look at a Home Office review to know that there desperately needs to be tougher enforcement on crossbow laws. The way that you can obtain a crossbow is 1, they're easy to create, but 2, if you're buying them on the internet, all you need is a driving licence. That's it, a driving licence and £50. And the thing with the driving licence is they just need a driving licence. I can't say that enough. It doesn't need to be your own. You could have stolen one, gone online, paid £50 and therefore you have a crossbow. They are lethal weapons that need to be better monitored, and it should not be possible for just anyone to go online and get themselves a crossbow. If nothing comes from Yvette Cooper, then I am disgusted. I truly don't know what words to say to the family. They will never watch this video. I'm sure they are avoiding all forms of the internet. But if I could say something to them, and I'm trying not to cry, but I wish I could just say to them that I'm so sorry for your losses. I will never begin to understand the pain that you're going through. And I truly hope that you get some justice and understanding from Kyle soon. But regardless of sentencing, or if Kyle actually passes away in hospital, I don't think anything will ever bring true justice to the situation. Unfortunately, that is all I can find out about this case today. I will be reviewing this in a couple of weeks just to see if there is an update. And the more I know, I will let you know too. Thank you for being with me. Again, I'm not going to say much at the end of this video because this is a very raw and sensitive topic. But thank you for watching. There is a link to Patreon in the bio and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye for now.